So we have these three papers from experts in their respective fields. The first paper is on community-based forest user groups. And this is a SSE model by Mr. Bhuttarai from Nepal. He's a member of ASEC, and he has been working on community-based forestry in Nepal for the past 26 years. So I would like to invite him, first of all, to present his case study, and it's for 15 minutes per person, and after that we can have Q&A time.
Yes, thank you, Doctor. Can you present my slide? Yes, basically this story is bring from Nepal, and I am working with Nepal's community forestry user groups. When I completed my school, during that time my village were almost grey, and my villagers were facing a lot of problem due to the degradation of forest. So during that time there was a meeting when I just completed school, and I was at home. The villagers were meeting together, and as a youth I also went in that public place, and I sat in the corner, and there was a discussion about community forestry. That discussion draw my attention, and that helped me to continue my career in forestry. So from that time till now I am continuously advocating the rights of forest, to ensuring rights of marginalized community to access forest product, forest resources. That helps to address many different aspects. So this is basically actually when we talk about SDG and social solidarity economy, I also heard that the framework we are talking about, the principle of SSE, or 17 goals of SDG, and implementing it in different sectors. But what I have realized is, as a community practitioner, we are promoting community forestry, and that is helping to framing the SDG and SSE. That is why I'm presenting it quite differently. So I don't want to talk about it, but basically our forest was degraded. That is why community organized by themselves and mobilized themselves, and currently protecting, managing and utilizing their own forest resources. When we talk about Nepal is a small country, small Himalayan country. It lies between India and China, two bigger country. But we are small, but we have three different ecological regions. In the north we have mountain, in between we have like hill area, and south we have plain area. And when I started this engagement with forestry, it was around 1990s. During that time the forest area was around 39% in total. But still the population were growing. Still population growth is high, but in many literature says that when population grows, then the forest or natural resources will be declined. But in our case it is totally different, because still the people are using forest resources. You can see 39 to 45%, that 6% forest has been increased when population has been also growing. So how it happened? What is the the essence or the aspect that contributed to grow forest? That is the story of my presentation. So currently we have, as I mentioned, 45% of the forest area is covered by forest of total land, and we have almost 1/3 of Nepal's forest area is managed by almost 30,000 forest user groups. That means we have forest user groups which is formed by community depending on forest, and they are owning their common pool resources and managing that forest. Then they are able to increase the condition of forest. That is the story. So when we talk about the forestry, As I mentioned, Nepal's communities have lot of engagement or dependency on forest, because still more than 52% of our households are depending on forest resources to burn, to cook their food. That means we are depending on forest very much. In the past, like before 1990s, the forest was owned by government, but during that time, the forest degradation and deforestation rate was high. Right now, that rate from 1.7 to 0.6%, that degradation rate is decreasing due to community organizing, community mobilizing, and managing by community. So since 1993 to 1995, we advocated for a lot of discussion happened for the good forest policy. So that in 1993 we have a new Forest Act formulated, and 1995 we have enacted forest regulation, which allows us the community to manage forest resources. So we have full authority, community have full authority to protect, manage, and utilize. I am using that three terms: protect, manage, and utilize forest resources. So as I mentioned, these forest user groups, which is already managing forest, have full authority, which is autonomous entity as per the Forest Act, and they are organizing all member of the societies, including men, women, the people who so-called rich or poor, high class or low class. Each and every people have equal rights to manage that forest. So this case study is bring from one particular district, that we call it Bara district, and they are owning that forest, that color one. That is the forest area, and the letter which is given by the authority, Department of Forest, to forest user groups to manage forest. So this one, this group is managing more than 2,000 hectare national forest, and they also have very good team, around 30 regular staff, and 100 of others are volunteering to manage that forest. So regarding the SDG, social, economic, and environmental aspect, as I mentioned, environmental aspect is a core aspect of forest user groups who are protecting and managing forest to protect our environment. So regarding economic activities, you can see the forest user groups who are depending on forest. They are the one who can collect firewood for their household consumption. They collect fodder for their cattle, and they also collect leaf litter for making organic fertilizer. They use non-timber forest products for their medicine, and also some indigenous communities are also depending on those forest products for their daily life as well. So in particular in this case, like I talk about All Korea Community Forestry, they are also harvesting timber, and they sell to their member as well as outside of their member as well. So forest is used for recreational activities. It is contributing for environment, and also many different indigenous communities are like they say that forest is their mother. That is their culture. If they do not have forest, then they will lose their culture. So it is also part of culture. So in overall, that when we talk about economic aspect, it is also linked with the democracy, participation, engagement kind of thing. So during in the morning session, we talk about people's power, like the fundamental principle of SSE. Like if you see in the community forestry, like we have forest user groups regulated by our laws, and they also have, forest user group also have their own constitution and their forest management plan. So constitution is one of the national constitution that governed forest user groups. That mention terms and responsibility, the meeting procedure and everything. So regarding the forest product, as I mentioned, in that particular forest user groups, they earn income from forest, and they own 70% of their benefits. Then another 30% they distribute to local government and in the federal government. So 20% goes to the local government, 10% to federal government, and remaining 70% that is owned and managed by forest user groups. That means they are the one who are contributing to run our government as well. So regarding income of total income, like I mentioned, 70% that is owned by forest user groups. Out of that 70 is 100, then 25% of their income that must be allocated for forest conservation activities, and remaining 50% for community development, and another remaining 25% for other activities as per the decision of forest user groups. That when you talk about forest user groups, they are engaging different social solidarity economy. For example, you can see they are making charcoal, they are selling that charcoal in the market. So so these kind of activities that is running by forest user groups. Regarding works, like I mentioned, they have regular staff, seasonal staff, volunteers who are more focusing on promoting decent job to their one members. And regarding SDG, as we talked, basically our forest user groups contributing to achieve SDG 4, that is gender equality. As I mentioned, 50% women participation is ensured, which is practiced in forest user groups. Again, in climate action, Nepal is one of the vulnerable countries due to the climatic problem, and forest user groups who are protecting forests is directly contributing to mitigate climate change, and also they are implementing various activities to enhance the adaptation capacity of forest user groups. And the next goal is 15.1, which is talking about protect forest and life of land. So community forestry is contributing directly to these three goals. Regarding mutual aid, as I mentioned, we have very good civic engagement platform. Community forest user groups is a civic engagement platform. Well, during the previous session, one of my colleagues from Bangladesh was talking about civic space. So I think this is one community civic space platform where men, women, children, youth, each and everyone come together, discuss in their one problem, and identify their problem and solve problem by themselves. So this is one very interesting democratic institutions that support us to solve the disaster, promote collaboration and coordination, and also implementing various activities. Regarding better governance, as I mentioned, representation of women, participation in decision-making process, sharing of benefits, conducting regular meeting, building institution. These are the things that directly contributed by the forest user groups in the case of community forestry. Regarding networking, one particular forest user groups have various, network. They have linked with local government, federal government, other NGO, academic institutions, and so on. That helps that when you talk about democracy, governance, participation, so on, that help to develop their linkage and their system. So finally, what I would like to conclude is, when you talk about this, social solidarity economy, like our forest user groups, 30,000 forest user groups are promoting the principle of social solidarity economy through the primacy of people and their social purpose. They come together, manage their forest for their own income, as well as they are selling their product to outside of the forest user, outside of their own forest users. That means they have that linkage. Also, it contributed for decent work and SDG, as I mentioned before, and voluntary cooperation. Like, thousands of community members, they are volunteering, promote volunteerism in forestry. We call it community volunteerism. There are different types of volunteerism, but directly they are supporting for this. Mutual aid, democratic participatory governance process, and so on. These are the things that community forestry have been contributed a lot to promote social solidarity economy, and also implementing SDG effectively. So thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bhattarai from Nepal. I think what you have you're doing is really very impressive, especially in the area of your coverage. This project is like covering 6 municipalities in the Bara district, yes, and 2,000 over hectares, and the number of people is like 265,000 families. So this is a huge enterprise, if you call it SSE, and and to divide the income into 70% and 30% for the government, and the 70% you still need to subdivide into forestry, conservation, and other uses. So how are you able to do this? How is your institutional setup such that you are able to do this in a very efficient and fair manner? Perhaps you can answer this later on.
Yes.
Yeah. And our next speaker is Mr. Ko On-sen. He'll be speaking on the village-based SSE model of multi-stakeholder collaboration. Mr. Ko On-sen is the Managing Director of the Foundation for Community Studies and Development, specializing in poverty alleviation and community development. And in 2015, he pioneered a community enterprise in natural farming with indigenous peoples. Mr. Ko.
Thank you, Dr. Lin. Nice to see many familiar faces, and so I think some of you from ASEC as well, to see the progression that we have made over the 10 over years. So exciting to see this and see how even the all-party parliamentary group of SDG Malaysia is integrating this. So let me start with the slides, please. Oh, I just pressed this, is that right? Oh, great, thank you. The features of social solidarity economy in OA Organic, which is the Association of Orang Asli Farmers in Tasik, Chini, Malaysia. Bola has given the macro amazing picture of local communities, the forest protection, and in partnership with government and municipal authorities. I'm going to bring it down to a micro scale on the Orang Asli village communities. They contribute least towards climate change, and yet they are the greatest victim who suffer from it. And it's not just in Malaysia, but globally, you find that the indigenous people suffer from multi-dimensional poverty due to deforestation and the destruction of their natural resources, and then an invasive and imposing cash economy which they are ill-equipped to adapt to in a very rapid way. And so it's in this context, how did we find interventions? Especially villages are small, you're talking about maybe 50 families, isolated and disconnected digitally and also in terms of infrastructure. And so we set up got the group Orang Asli, helped them, provided some seed capital, technology, organization, got them to work together. And what has happened over the last 7 years, they have, we've got 42 now are active farmers. This is in vegetable, and now we're expanding to fruits and honey. 20% are earning 2 times more their normal income. They're getting between 800 to 2,000 ringgit per month. The cumulative income over the last 7 years is 937,333. That's maybe about 250,000 US. They've acquired business and management skills. They're able to know how to access fair markets, and they're able now to afford savings as well and to upscale their farms. One of the areas where we change the business model and created that revolution, I love that word from the previous workshop, how we changed the business model and turn it upside down, whereby now the poor producers, instead of getting 20%, which is the normal conventional supply chain because they're so far out, logistics cost and transportation is very high, we're able to reorganize the community and the markets. Now they get double of that, and working with the other stakeholders in the supply chain to get a more equitably and fairer distribution of the profits. Secondly, we're also trying to develop not just sustainable livelihoods, but sustainable environment and it's moving towards zero carbon and better food security. So with this natural farming and organic farming methods, they emit 30% less greenhouse gases than conventional farming methods. Soil health is improved and it captures more carbon, and only with a quarter acre of land they can produce adequate income to sustain a whole family, as opposed to the traditional approach of felling maybe 6 to 8 acres of land and to do monocrops. And thirdly, we also have enhanced protection through community cohesion and leadership. We trained 2 villages in managing forest protocols, as Bola was talking about. 112 Orang Aslis have been incentivized now to protect their forests. Once they discover that their advantage in natural farming with premium prices is dependent on protected watershed areas and a protected forest. And so now they're incentivized, and with the community building, the community is being equipped and enabled to conserve their environment. Now, coming into the 7 features of the SSE, the social solidarity economy, you can see that we have, with the engage in economic activities, all the profit surplus is plowed back to build production and capacity of the communities. The farmers receive 40% of the retail price, doubling their original incomes, and they also work on their own hours. There's mutual aid, there's voluntary cooperation, there's democratic participation, and there's autonomy. They own their own land and they decide their own working hours. I'll skip this because I wanted more to look into some of the issues. And these 7 features are so important because they provide a framework to identify social enterprises that actually bring the highest impact upon the communities. But it's also a good framework to see where our weaknesses are. And so with this, I wanted to show you where are some of the areas where we're struggling a bit more. In the democratic and participatory governance feature, we have about 10 to 20% who are pretty active and who will manage the community. And then the bottom 20% have to have very, very strong encouragement to participate. So the top 20% for the committee meetings, gatherings, and community activities, they will all be there. But so this is something we are finding. How do we strengthen that? Voluntary long commitment we find is a challenge. The culture is that they're good in working short term and getting everyone together. But on a long-term committed activity, like a social enterprise and community farming, that's a bit more challenging. And then also because of the, I suppose it's also moving them from subsistence to a surplus community, economic lifestyle. Another area that we're also not doing as well is mutual aid and voluntary cooperation challenges. We don't have any emergency fund for the whole community. They've started a fund to manage their own repairs and maintenance for the farmers, but there seems to be a reluctance to contribute towards a community fund and a wider community. Thirdly is the egalitarian. It's a very eco-society, the indigenous people. And they don't like confrontation. So getting things moving, getting over, having to make important big decisions is very slow, and sometimes because of that slowness, they can really fall behind. And now after the 7 features, there's also these feminist values that we talk about in the SSEs. So they talk about empathy, altruism, care, concern, so on. I think altruism and generosity are the 2 values that we find weakest in our projects. There's a reluctance to contribute financially towards a community fund. But I wonder whether if they have even better incomes, that would be less resistance. Number 2, although there's on mutuality, there's a system of reciprocity. They contribute towards a community managed fund. They help clean up the farm and the common areas. They contribute towards the petrol to run their water pumps. But out of that, there is it's located in a culture of living in harmony with one another. That's one of the beautiful values in the culture. And so we see this being played out in the mutuality, and it's one of their strengths. And as a result of that, there's good empathy and unity of our members. But I'm puzzled. It doesn't seem to extend that same care for the wider non-farm members. So we're finding that one of the challenges. And we're thinking now of institutionalizing that they contribute 1% of the profits into a community fund for the benefit of the community. So that negotiation and discussion is going on. Feminine qualities, in short, are more limited in financial support, but generosity qualities displayed through sharing of surplus crops and working. Gotong royong is our Malay word for working together. Weddings, they come and cook together, or deaths or funeral, they'll come together. But out of that, there is a challenge. And so with that, I am able to finish. So thank you for your attention.
I think this is a very challenging project to undertake. And after 7 years, the project is kind of still not sustainable in the sense that it doesn't cover the cost of production and the marketing costs, yes. And all the infrastructure costs were all formally funded through grants, you know. So in actual fact, they are not covering their cost of production. And, you know, how do you foresee that they can, you know, move towards sustainability in the near future? And now that the project is ending after 7 years, I mean, your foundation is not providing any more grants, and the cooperative that is organizing them is also moving out. And Orang Asli, the indigenous people, are not very keen to take over management of the project. So I think we need to put a lot more thought and see how much more work and how we can, you know, promote the sustainability of the project. Perhaps we can discuss this later. Yeah. And our third paper is on the village-based inclusive development of rural women by Mr. Kumar Loganathan. He's the director of the Savodaya Action Research Center. And through the association of the Sava Sewa Farms, ASEFA in short, which was led by his father for 50 years, Kumar has played a key role in establishing thousands of self-help villages across India. And I think we'd like to hear his marvelous story, Mr. Kumar.
Thank you, madam. So, good afternoon, everybody. So, my presentation today is inclusive development of rural women for village development. It's a 55 years experience of the Gandhian organization. Need to be employed and change in social structure. You all will agree, because here I think more than 60% are women. You agree with that? Yes. Who are we, ASEFA? We are basically a Gandhian organization. This was started with the blessing of this saint, Acharya Vinoba Bhave. He started a very noble mission called Bhudan Movement. It's called Land Gift Movement. What he did is, he went on foot marches throughout India, and he was able to collect 4.38 million acres of land as donation from landlord to distribute to the landless people. Because his idea was, there are differences between haves and have-nots. To reduce the bridge, if we give land to the landless, they can be able to earn income. So that was his idea. Some of the followers with him, they started ASEFA as the second phase of Bhudan movement, mainly to settle the landless farmers. But gradually, when I started to work with the Bhudan Alatis, ASEFA expanded its vision of including other community and started with the integrated development approach. So our motto is a Gandhian one: promote the Gandhian concept of self-reliant, self-sufficient and self-managed community based on the principle of freedom, economic equality and justice. So this is India. So you can say 8 states ASEFA spread its services, but now it is all limited to Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry. You can see all that colors where ASEFA presence are there. So over 1 million families it has touched over the last 55 years. So what is the approach to the development? Basically, initially, it is to mobilize the people and make them participate in the development process. So once you make them, then you gradually introduce economical program, services based on their needs. So that is the initial stage. But sustainability is one of the key word in the development sector. So what it does is, it takes up the 3 core principles. One is promote exclusive community organization to carry on the programs with suitable legal entity, Then subsequently, it build up capital and resources to continue the program. Then it also link up with other institutions to avail necessary services. So generally it takes about 10 to 15 years. Once it becomes sustainable, then ASEFA withdraws. So as on date, it has promoted 163 community-based organizations, all with legal entity, tax-paying entity. Some of them are tax-paying entity to carry on the development program. So we wanted to experiment in our organization some of the Gandhian concept. So this is one of the concept, Gandhian trusteeship model. So all the organizations that we have promoted has these characteristics. One is no individual ownership. The communities are the owners in all the institutions. Decentralized approach, democratic approach, and this is owner cannot share the profit. They are only the custodian of the property. Invest the profit, whatever they make profit, it is all plowed back to bring more people under that program. Why inclusive development of women? Many of you know here, because when women are very progressive, their family will progress, and then the community will also progress. But when ASEFA intervened in 1970s, the situation was like this. One had a restricted interaction. People are not like now. People have the women had a very restricted interaction. They don't go outside the house. They don't interact with other strangers. That was the condition. Because of that, they had limited awareness about the society or any other activities happening in the society. Then poor literacy. In some cases, less than 7% women are educated. And negligible participation in income generation. Though they participate, but the income will not be touched by the women. The men will take away. So that was the condition. So the other one is poor health in terms of IMR, infant mortality rate, MMR, maternal mortality rate, and then low underweight. All that were very poor. The figures were very poor. Hence, in many cases, they were dependent on men for many things. So that was the situation in the 1970s. So what it did, it just created a separate platform for women. That's women self-help group. But now when it is all, okay, madam, I will give you more work. So they formed a women SSG at that time, and then women were able to come and freely talk, interact with all other women. And then, and then they were given training, IGV program, all that they were done. Subsequently, these women self-help groups were federated and registered under mutual benefit trust. So in each trust, there will be 3,000 to 4,000 women members. So as on date, 87 MPTs are in Tamil Nadu with 25,000 plus women. This MIT act as a common platform to identify issues, plan what is needed, implement programs and monitor it. So what is the roadmap for the women development? One is economical programs, and then the microcredit services, education, social security, food security and health care. So dairy in rural area, next to agriculture, dairy is the most viable and regular income generation. So it's a very comprehensive programs that we have developed. We provide cow to the landless women, give them training, and then we collect the milk, process it and market it. Till marketing, we are intervening. What happens is, when you intervene with a dairy, they get additional income apart from regular agriculture income. And also, you can see a family earn with one cow 1000 USD per year. This is the approximate value. So because of our intervention, a revenue of USD 30 million goes to the villages every year. That's a reverse. When generally, money goes from village to the urban areas, but in this case, it's a reverse. The money comes to the villages. Also, urine and cow dung are the good source for organic cultivation. Our friend knows that. And then similarly, the waste from agriculture become a good feed for the animal. And then also agriculture, land and soil development, collective farm, that's where we started Bhutan development. And then under farmers renaissance, we give training, exposure visit, demonstration farm. And then conservation of water is more important because we work in a very dry areas where the rainfall is less than 600 mm per annum. So rainwater harvesting and then conservation using different techniques. And then also usage of water using distribution pipeline and then drip irrigation, sprinklers for effective irrigation system. I think HomeNet and also OnSign said marketing is very key for successful intervention. So we are also trying it out, procurement of raw material, agri materials, and then value added, and then we distribute it. These are some of the products. And then this is the weekly market yard we have promoted, where the producer come, consumer come directly every once in a week. They do the transaction. So we have promoted a microfinance institution. All the equity shareholders are the MBTs, or the Federation of Women Self-Help Group. They raise loan from the bank and then online to the women self-help group for multi-purpose, for livelihood, consumption, for whatever they need it's all they were given. Extended credit worth USD 25 million US dollar every year. Also, we run the education for mainly children, giving focus to the girl children. Girl children, you can see over 300,000 children are passed out from our school. It's all regular schools. And also we run informal schools, mainly the Pilagam, it's nothing but tuition center, and also center for dropouts and slow learners. Social security for the vulnerable, we provide wage loss compensation for the pregnant ladies, because in the advanced stage they are compelled to go to work because of economical reason, but in such cases they give birth to underweight children. So in order to avoid that, we give wage loss compensation, and also insurance for the victim of accident. And then if any father or mother dies, they will be provided with some lump sum for the girl education. So mass wedding for the vulnerable, we have a video, I have a video, and also in exhibition they said they will give some photos If you want to see that, you can see that. Women cannot be empowered unless they have asset owned by them. So that also we provide. Food security, because vulnerable, mainly widows, destitute, deserted ladies, they cannot feed their children even for a single meal. They struggle. So we started providing them this food security through tie-up with Food Mart under the concept of buy now, pay later. Healthcare is also included. It's a very comprehensive one. I think you can learn it from that books. Technology, we cannot leave technology alone. We are also integrating technology with with the development process. So, like they said, application of SEC principle, all engagement in economical programs, primacy of people over capital and profit, all that you have seen that in the presentation. So, this is our SDG contribution, nearly 8 we have assessed. Thank you.
Yes, please.